I've decided it's time to pull up ivy and plant something new, something that could bear fruit or host butterflies. I've learned that bright green leaves that cover the surface can come up pretty easily with a firm tug, though they are also the keys to much deeper roots. Sometimes a root gives a little and then snaps off a 3 to 4 inch piece. However, if I stay with the root and dig the dirt out of the way just enough, I can unearth root lattices under the ground. Digging deeper, I can pull up 5 and 6 foot lengths of roots connected to other roots, connected to other roots. Every time I rest, new bright green ivy leaves shoot up through the earth right where I've already dug, mocking my efforts. Despite my work disturbing the roots, the ivy is doing just fine. I thought quarantine was a time to pluck up ivy, but the ivy seems to favor remaining planted. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. I'm guessing you've heard this before. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. The idea that everything can be separated into different parts. We can interpret Ecclesiastes 3's opening poem as an either-or rubric for discerning the season, either planting or plucking up, either laughing or crying, either building up or breaking down, either bringing new life into the world or mourning the dead. Everything has an appointed and opposite time. But this is not the only interpretation. Simple dualisms always mask complexities, and multiple narratives coexist. Grief can include tender laughter. Happy occasions can contain grief, and joy can emerge right alongside suffering, like the recent joyous relief after a hateful nationalistic policy was proposed and then revoked. Joy in the relief, and sorrow at the attack on belonging. Dr. Elsa Tamez, a Mexican-Costa Rican biblical scholar, writes that various times for activities and emotions in this Ecclesiastes text, quote, does not mean folding one's arms and waiting for the good times to come. The poem simply suggests the importance of knowing consciously that at given historical moments, one builds, sows, loves, and seeks peace, even in times of war, hate, uprooting, and destruction. This, she says, is much harder to do than to build, sow, love, and seek peace in times of peace, love, sowing, and building. In the middle of chapter 3, the author of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, is disheartened at meaninglessness, overwhelm, stuckness, boredom, inability to move. Being stuck when overwhelmed is a real experience. At the same time, Kohelet reframes overwhelm as a reminder of human limitations. When we feel least capable of making sense of what in the world is going on, when the stress, the real stress of pandemic, entrenched racism, online learning, contested borders, cruel force are on the rise, this is also a time to move, to resist remaining stuck, to resist giving up and giving in, to resist feeling like there's nothing to do and none of it matters. When meaningless starts to invade the human spirit, it is possible to move and be moved with humility, honoring human limitations, God's mysterious creativity, uprooting complicities in harm, and cultivating real, deep, dependable community. In verses 16 to 22, Kohelet asks why we don't move in these ways, why day-to-day life is so different from biblical roots of justice we claim as our deepest convictions and institutional missions. When trying to pinpoint the gaps, Kohelet responds much like Somali British poet Worcestershire, it hurts everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Like Ivy, meaninglessness and empty responses can also be invasive, slowing movement and motivation with seemingly endless tangles. The Northwest Tap Connection recently performed a moving intergenerational tap dance hoofing rendition of Janelle Monáe's song, Hell You Talking About, a reminder that speech that matters in the face of meaninglessness will be accountable to the names and circumstances of lives disappeared, or we best hold our tongues and work up to active, luminous conditions for speech, as Mexican-American scholar Gloria Anzaldúa puts it. The Northwest Tap Connection is dancing while they shout, say her name. Kohelet digs into human experiences and finds that not only meaninglessness, but indeed wickedness invades human lives and communities. The righteous die, and the wicked live a little longer and then die. What's the point? Kohelet can be read as activating and advocating for practices of recovery, for disrupting death-dealing dualistic either-ors with networks of solidarity across God's diverse and mysterious creation. Solidarity, it's not just a nice idea or a watered-down way of getting along. Solidarity is work. Solidarity involves root digging, unearthing practices of unjust compensation, labor, economics, housing policy, evictions, how the tangles of the status quo allow some to feast while others work to death. Yes, Kohelet writes, we all die, but also all must be able to live. Kohelet invites us to pay attention to our bodies and the bodies of our neighbors, to bear witness to how we move through day-to-day life. Are we moving in ways that bring life or death? As a white woman, pastoral theologian, married, mother, I find accountability to this kind of recovery work in conversation partners, diverse conversation partners, listening, confession and change, learning and unlearning, deep internal root work in conversation with others. Elsa Tamas sees Ecclesiastes 3 as a call to 3 movements of humanization in a dehumanizing world. This is solidarity work. In the first 8 verses, humanization means paying attention to time and to uses of time. In the middle 6 verses, humanization means faith in God's mystery and active resistance to frustration by connecting with the awe of uncertainty, the gift of human finitude, the more that exceeds every attempt to grasp the fullness of life under the sun. In the last 7 verses, humanization means working well together with others in networks of justice, aware of the threat of polarization, dualism, meanness, and stubborn divisions. Tamas advocates for organic connections to movements, to tie us together, using time well, meeting overwhelm with awe, and cultivating active networks of solidarity that celebrate difference as a created good. Pulling up Ivy for me has been a metaphor for the work of solidarity. Clearing the ground of bright green leaves or snapping off 3 inches of root hardly matters without getting to the thickets that thrive a little deeper. No one person could do this work alone. It crosses time and season. But the fruits that could come and be harvested, fruits of justice, involve movements that become day-to-day spiritual practices sustained in bodies and across communities, seeds that grow to plants that host butterflies, that miraculous example of transformation. This is movement work. Kohelet's dramatic assertions suggest a rhythm of life, a movement. What helps you move in ways that meet frustration with humility, awe, and solidarity? One way I move is through tap dancing. Since I was 3 years old, my tap teachers have taught me to move with practice, humility, creativity, precision, care, compassion, community, beauty, listening, deep listening, integrity, connecting histories with future dreams, and bold rhythms. In quarantine, I've been pulling Ivy and thinking about it as a metaphor for the long work of justice. I've been zooming into my tap dancing class as a reminder to move, even while being stuck at home, is a faithful way to love my neighbor. In these frustrating in-between times, stubborn ivy and rhythmic solidarity are movement metaphors for me. What helps you move?